ourselves with the new Republican governor of the great state of Ohio, a man named John Kasich.
Have you ever been stopped by a policeman who was an idiot? I had this idiot pull me over on 315. Listen to this story. He says to me, he says, you passed this emergency vehicle on the side of the road and you didn't yield. He's an idiot.
This week, Governor John Kasich made a material difference in whether or not Barack Obama is likely to be reelected in 2012. Ohio's new Republican governor, John Kasich, has made it more likely that President Obama will be reelected next year. Let me explain. In 2008, the Fraternal Order of Police, the country's largest police organization, gave its official endorsement to Republican presidential candidate John McCain.
There is no better choice for the Fraternal Order of Police or for this country than to elect John McCain as the next president. Today, Senator, you have earned the support of 327,000 law enforcement officers in every region of this country.
The Fraternal Order of Police endorsed John McCain in 2008. In the election before that, they endorsed President George W. Bush in his re-election campaign against Democratic Senator John Kerry. In the election before that, given the choice between, again, George W. Bush or Al Gore, the Fraternal Order of Police picked George W. Bush. Even though unions are thought of as a key part of the Democratic Party's base, unions representing firefighters and police officers have sometimes been a more Republican-leaning outlier from that basic truth. And that has been a great image burnisher for the Republican Party. Come election time, Republicans need to upgrade from their standard daddy warbucks billionaires for Bush image. And when it comes to political imagery, cops and firefighters are a really big upgrade from daddy warbucks. So Republican endorsements from police and firefighters unions have been really, really important to Republicans politically. In Wisconsin, when Republican Governor Scott Walker wanted to strip union rights in Wisconsin, remember who he specifically exempted from that? He specifically exempted the police officers and firefighters unions who had endorsed him, Scott Walker, in the last election. He spared the Republican-leaning cops and firefighters unions and stripped everybody else's union rights. Now, that did not stop Wisconsin police officers and firefighters from siding with the other unions in opposing Scott Walker once everybody figured out what he was up to. But politically speaking, at least, Scott Walker tried. Governor John Kasich in Ohio, he didn't even try.
Have you ever been stopped by a policeman who was an idiot?
John Kasich decided to use government to strip union rights in Ohio. He didn't even bother trying to exempt firefighters and the police officers for whom he has so much respect. Governor Kasich signed his union stripping measure into law last night. Police officers and firefighters taken apart just like everybody else, no exemptions. When you think about what union rights are used for, when you think about what people who can bargain collectively with their employer collectively bargain for, what gets all the attention is wages and health benefits and hours and pensions, stuff like that. But that is not all of it. Teachers' unions, for example, also bargain about stuff like class size and resources for their students. In the case of police unions, well, for example, in the city of Cleveland, things have been tough for the police department recently. In the last 7 years, the police force in Cleveland has shrunk by 300 officers. As this Cleveland bylined AP story notes today, the Cleveland Police Department has also been forced to shut down its street crimes unit. They have had to shut down their car theft unit. And even though the city of Cleveland has 22 miles of beautiful coastline along Lake Erie, 22 miles, the Cleveland Police Department no longer can afford a boat. A single boat. There is no boat in the Cleveland Police Department for patrolling a city that has 22 miles of coastline. In the face of those dramatic cuts, that kind of economic pressure cranking down on the Cleveland Police Department, what police officers there have used their union rights for, what they've been able to hold on to because of collective bargaining, is having 2 officers per police car in some dangerous neighborhoods in Cleveland. That's what the union has allowed them to hold on to so far. Disgusting how greedy these unions are, right? One of the ways that unions advocate for their members' interests is by getting involved in politics. Some unions lean Republican, some unions lean Democratic. In Ohio, the Fraternal Order of Police state chapter there in the last election endorsed a Republican state senator named Shannon Jones. Shannon Jones then turned around and, metaphorically of course, stabbed those police officers in the back by sponsoring that Republican legislation to strip police officers and everybody else's union rights. She had just been endorsed by the police union. The president of the Ohio Fraternal Order of Police told Jeannie Cummings at Politico.com today, quote, "She neglected to tell us it was her plan to dismantle collective bargaining. In just a few short months, we have had a dramatic transformation of the feelings of my membership." Yeah, I would guess. It's not just in Ohio either. It's on the national level, too. The national president of the Fraternal Order of Police, seen here, endorsing John McCain in 2008. He is a former county police officer from South Carolina. His name is Chuck Canterbury. Mr. Canterbury told Politico today that despite his union's past Republican leanings, his members are, quote, shocked by what Republicans are doing across the country right now. Quote, "Who are these evil teachers who teach your children? These evil policemen who protect them? These evil firemen who pull them from burning buildings? When did we all become evil? There's going to be a backlash," he said. "We are going to hold them accountable." Joining us now is Chuck Canterbury, the national president of the Fraternal Order of Police. Mr. Canterbury, we're very happy to have you here. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rachel. We're glad to be here.
When you say there's going to be a backlash, we are going to hold them accountable, who is them, and how do you intend to hold them accountable?
Well, first of all, them are politicians who have decided to place the X on the target of police officers, firefighters, teachers, public employees in this country. We have become the face of the economic crisis. And those that want to blame us also seek our endorsement. And our membership is along with all other public employees, are going to put their feet to the fire from now on. We're going to make sure that they support us in our efforts, and they support the right to collectively bargain, or they're not going to get support, they're not going to get PAC funds, and they're not going to get shoe leather out working in their districts for them.
It seemed like an important turn in Wisconsin when even though police officers and firefighters unions had been spared from Wisconsin's union-busting legislation there, that firefighters and police officers still marched on the Capitol. They slept in the Capitol Rotunda along with other protesters. They stood with those protesters even though they themselves had been spared. It was a real sign of solidarity. Did there used to be a split between police officers and firefighters unions and the rest of the union movement? And is that split closing, do you think?
I'm not sure it was a split. I think there was a healthy competition between fire and police, and there always will be. Two public safety sectors that have different jobs, but there's no split now. We are united. We're standing together with our firefighter brothers and sisters, as well as the teachers, the nurses, any other public employee who has lost the right to collectively bargain or who is yet to obtain that right. We are going to stand together united. I've never seen it like this in my 32 years in law enforcement and in the Fraternal Order of Police, and I believe that you're going to see an uprising, strong voices from within the communities knocking on doors. I'm going to Ohio Wednesday to help our brothers and sisters in their effort on the referendum, and I think you're going to see that all over the country. I'm not surprised that the Wisconsin police officers supported the people's right to assemble and the people's free speech in Wisconsin. You know, we are citizens. That's what we defend, is the Constitution.
In terms of the politics here, not being just about passing legislation, not being just about fighting on policy terms, but really trying to win the argument here. When you look at the polling data about how Americans feel about police officers, the support for collective bargaining rights for police officers is off the charts high. Americans believe that police officers and firefighters as well ought to have collective bargaining rights. What do you think is important for people to understand about what police officers use their collective bargaining rights for? I mentioned some of the things that have been argued for in the Cleveland Police Department, just as an example. Is that an appropriate example of how police officers have used collective bargaining to shape their work environment?
Absolutely. I mean, staffing levels, You know, in my 32 years, I've never seen management that agreed with the rank and file on how many people needed to be on the streets. Just recently, the mayor of Camden said that after laying off 44% of the police department, that there would be no reduction in service. Well, they no longer respond to minor incidents. Crime is up in Camden, and you know, who wouldn't have thought that was going to happen? But yet they had the audacity to go on television and say that first responders and the citizens would not be in jeopardy. It's just absolutely not true. You know, the public unions in this country and private unions have brought laws against child labor, workman's compensation, the 40-hour work week, employment security. That was brought on by unions. That was never brought on by management.
Your union, your membership, is not hostile to Republican Party politics by any stretch of the imagination. We know about the Fraternal Order of Police endorsing John McCain, for example, against Barack Obama. Given that, do you feel like you have any insight into where all of this anti-union rights stuff is coming from all of a sudden? It's happening all over the country, and even federally, all of a sudden, even though it is not really what Republican politicians campaigned on in the last election.
Well, you know, I think the radical right wing of the party, I think the Republican Party's been hijacked. I think everybody's running scared. The midterm elections, a lot of incumbents lost, and they believed, and probably still believe, that there's an anti-union sentiment in this country. But the polls are not showing that. You know, 61% of Americans 3 weeks ago, polled by USA Today, believe that public employees should have the right to collectively bargain. Those numbers are steadily increasing around the country, and that's fabulous with only 17% of the United States unionized.
Chuck Canterbury, National President of the Fraternal Order of Police, thank you so much for joining us, sir. It's really nice to have you here on the show with us tonight.
Thanks for having us on, Rachel.